and we had some good public comment, and we had a very good response in our survey that we will do at the end of that. So we recognize that the 1st of July came pretty quickly. That is a big peak travel time, big family time for people, so we wanted to offer another session to allow you a different set of people potentially the opportunity to attend, as well as anybody that wanted a second round at the information. I will tell you that we will post the video from the first session on the website tomorrow, I believe is what Danielle told me. So you can look probably in the About or the Community or the News section of the Grant County Schools website. You will find the video from the first session. And the reason I call your attention to that is this. Eli Anderson, our PBA, spoke very well at that first session and had a presentation of slides that I found very informative. He's unable to be with us here tonight, and I know that some of you were very interested in that, so we want to make that information available to you. So you can look on the district's webpage tomorrow and find that information. Also, I want to go over just some housekeeping items. This is not a school board meeting. This is a public forum. We do have board members with us in attendance tonight. They are here to observe and to listen and to gain perspective, especially when we get to the public comment section. However, because it is not a meeting, they will not be speaking. So you are more than welcome to present your thoughts and your ideas. And we want that. They will certainly listen to what you have to say, but this is not an official school board meeting, so they will not be acting in an official capacity here tonight. Also, I want to recognize that we do have with us our Assistant Superintendent and Chief Academic Officer, J.D. Cullen, here with us tonight. So we appreciate her attendance. And I wanted to let you know that Deputy Superintendent Claudette Harold would love to have been here tonight. However, she had already planned some trips as I began the planning stage, and it just so happened that she had already planned a trip out of town on this evening, but I felt it was important that we honor the published date. So do know that I have shared this information with her, and she said it was perfectly fine with me to share that with you, that she's unable to be here because of a prior engagement out of town. I'll begin where I began during the first town hall with a little bit of background on where this idea began. It actually began right after I was selected and chosen to be the next superintendent. I very much believe in the power and the value of our public school system and our school boards. I do believe that it represents one of the purest forms of democracy, and so that we do have elected officials that are representative of constituents, and that there are policies to be made and money involved and people impacted. So I think it's very important as a democratic system that we are accountable to the public, that we share information with the public, and that we provide a public forum in which people can provide feedback and input, and we use that to kind of guide where we go in the future. The other part that I recognize is as we face challenges and tough decisions have to be made, the implementation of the strategy becomes very important, because then you begin to make decisions based on a strategic plan. And so then it becomes clear to everyone that the decisions that are being made reflect the goals of that strategic plan, and that we have a shared vision and a uniform understanding of exactly what it is that we're working toward. And I think that kind of accountability and clarity promotes trust and a partnership. And we certainly recognize and understand that the school is a partnership between the government agency and the community, and we are here to serve our most valuable resource, which is our future, and that is our children. So that's kind of a little bit of background on how we got to where we are tonight. So I'll talk a little bit about the process. Today we're going to review some data, some information, and the purpose of this is not condemnation, but simply information. I think it's important that we take a look at exactly where we are, and then once we wrap up that section, we will have an opportunity for public comment. And again, School board will not be able to respond to your comments, but we certainly welcome you to present those comments and bring those forward. As much as I can, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have that time. I'm full disclosure, I am learning. I know just a little bit more today than I did on July 1st, but some great questions were asked during that first session. And even if I can't answer your question, I still welcome you asking it, so that it will allow me to do some research and then potentially get back to you. At the end of that, we will make available to you a survey, and in that survey, there's some directed questions that we want to obtain specific feedback on specific areas of our district, but also included in that is an opportunity for you to tell us anything that you would like to share. We recognize that not everyone feels comfortable coming forward and having a microphone or speaking from your seat, so there may be a developed thought that you have that you would feel more comfortable sharing that in that open-ended question. So you will absolutely have that opportunity. Then by the end of August, we want to share the survey results and publish those, so be watching social media and the website for that. And then we will begin to form committees that will kind of address what we notice as the trends of those results, so that we begin to develop what we ascertain should be our priorities, and then start to develop a strategic plan around those identified priorities. And then by the end of December, we will share with you exactly what those focus areas are, as well as develop a timeline and a set of goals to go with those focus areas. By the end of February, we will create action steps and timelines, and by the end of March, we will share the strategic plan with the community, and then 25 through 28, we will monitor and adjust that strategic plan. We recognize that sometimes plans don't survive the first taste of battle, so we want to make sure that we have a good monitoring system in place, so that if we're not progressing towards our goal, we have the opportunity to make adjustments, and so that we can know with assuredness that we are moving forward, and it's not something that we just put out there and then put on the shelf. We want this to be a living document that steers kind of our direction moving forward. All right, so here's what we're going to look at in terms of the data. We're going to take a look at some student achievement numbers. These are all published on the Kentucky School Report Card. We're going to take a look at some staffing numbers, budget and finance, and then finally, community involvement. So I wanted to share with you this statement from the Kentucky School Board Association that kind of breaks down the roles and responsibilities of every level that impacts public education in Kentucky. So this may be a little bit difficult to see, but we have kind of 5 big areas, beginning with the state legislature, and it is tasked with providing an efficient system of common schools, providing funding, and enacting laws. So the funding sources and laws come from the state. The State Board of Education sets rules for schools, and the Department of Education and provides assistance to districts. Locally elected school boards are charged in part with approving district policies, approving the budget, and hiring the superintendent. School councils, comprised of elected parents and educators, set school policy and make decisions that enhance student achievement. And then local communities support schools through local tax dollars and public input. Families and caregivers directly support students' education. And I don't want to just kind of gloss over that last sentence. One of the things that I think it's important for us to acknowledge and recognize that every child's first teacher is their family, right? So they are going to be shaped and guided first and foremost by their home, and we respect that and honor that. But we also understand that families rely and depend on us to do our best, and that we enter into an agreement with them that we're going to do everything we can to act in the best interest of their children, because we know just how precious they are and the impact that it has on our future as a community. This graphic does a nice job, I thought, and I didn't share this last time, but does a nice job of kind of delineating the difference between school board responsibilities and site-based council responsibilities. And the reason I bring that up is historically we have kind of struggled to have full representation on some of our school councils. So I would encourage parents that are interested in what goes on at the school level to consider running for those councils, because you do have an opportunity to kind of impact some day-to-day decisions at the school level. School board, with respect to academics, adopts a calendar, professional development, and holiday days. They monitor district performance and develop the district plan. School councils consult with superintendent on final selection of curriculum, instructional materials and practices, and they develop the school improvement plan. With respect to students, the school board, they set the graduation requirements, adopt the discipline code, and adopt non-resident enrollment policies, and set the attendance boundaries for the schools. The school councils, they set and implement discipline practices for the school, determine student classroom assignments, and determine schedule of the school day. With respect to staff, the school board hires and evaluates the superintendent, and hires and contracts with board attorney, establishes job descriptions for all staff, and adopts leave policies for staff. School councils consult the superintendent on the hiring of the principal, decide number of people in each position in the school, that we sometimes refer to as the allocation, and assign staff time. School boards, with respect to funding, adopt local tax rates, set the district budget, set salary schedules for all district staff, allocate resources to each school, while school councils set school budget, consult the superintendent on the use of funding from school board to purchase materials and other student support needs. With respect to activities, school board approves overnight trips, school-wide fundraisers, and new extracurricular activities. School councils approve regularly scheduled field trips, extracurricular activities offered at school, and set participation requirements for extracurricular activities. And finally, with respect to facilities, school boards maintain and insure district property, approve construction projects, decide how school buildings are used after hours by community groups, and then school councils determine use of school space during school day, and improve classroom teaching and learning. So that kind of delineates the responsibilities. So there's lots of opportunities, even at the school level, to get involved and help make decisions. So earlier, I referred to the Kentucky School Report Card. This is based on some tests that students take in the spring every year, as well as some other data. And if you take a look at an overview of Grant County, red is the lowest performing group, blue is the highest performing group. So our elementary schools are right in the middle in yellow, middle school is in orange, and high school is in orange. Now, if we dig deeper into the subcategories, we'll begin with our reading data. At the elementary level, we have about 37% of our students scoring proficient and distinguished. That's the highest they can score. And then just shy of that, about 36% of our students are scoring novice in reading. So then in middle school, we look like we're about 38% proficient distinguished and about 32% novice. And then in high school, 30% proficient distinguished. And then we have our biggest area of concern would be 45% of our students in the novice category. And just as a side note, this is the 22-23 data. The 23-24 data will not be released probably until October of this fall. Once that data is released, we will post that on our website, and the Kentucky School Report Card will be available to everyone. And you can search that through KDE's website as well. Now, when we talk about math data, it's not wildly different than our reading data. Elementary, we have about 36% proficient and distinguished and about 36% novice. And this is the aggregate of all 4 of our elementary schools. And then we have 1 middle and 1 high. In middle school, we have about 34% proficient distinguished and about 32% novice. And in high school, we have about 26 proficient distinguished percent, and our novice is around 43% for our high school students. College and career readiness. Now, there are several factors that determine how we designate a student as college and or career ready. So one of those determining factors is if they've met benchmark on at least one of the subcategories of the ACT. Career readiness can mean that they have completed 2 courses in a career pathway, they have passed an end-of-program assessment, they have completed a co-op. So there are several factors that determine what are our college and career requirements. I will say I think Grant County does pretty well in this area. So if you look all the way back to 2021, the red bar represents the number of students that were deemed college and career ready. The blue bar determines the total number of seniors for that year. So about 149 out of 227 in 2021, and about 140 in 2022 out of 212. 2023 was about 160 out of 226. And 2024, we were about, I think the number was 178 out of 232. I know if you were at, said this last time, if you were at senior awards night, the majority of that evening was spent recognizing the number of seniors that were college and or career ready. So we were really proud of our students for taking opportunity of the opportunities that exist here within this building. Graduation rates, we had a district goal, I believe, of 92%, and in 2022-23, we exceeded that percent. I do think that you see a bit of an impact from COVID in that dip. I'll try not to use that word very much tonight, but I think in full disclosure, I think that graph represents the impact of that. So moving on. We also have something that is called a profile of a graduate. You may have seen this poster in and around our building. You may have heard of our senior exit interviews. And a few years ago, the board and the superintendent set out to kind of, with community input, set out to determine what characteristics would we feel good about our high school graduates possessing as they enter into the workforce or more education. And so they came up with the acronym of SUCCEED. And so you can see it's self-aware, understanding of others, competent, communicative, ethical, engaged, and determined. And I will tell you that I believe Grant County is ahead of the curve with respect to the rest of the state in this work. We hear a lot of mention of deeper learning in some press releases from KDE. Deeper learning, a big part of that work is exactly this. What characteristics, what attributes do we want seniors to leave our schools with? And there's been an increase in emphasis on some local community control about what schools do and self-direction. So again, I think Grant County is ahead of the curve in embracing that work and doing fun work and getting that organized. Here are our attendance numbers. So you can see it goes back all the way to 18-19. We have a district goal, I believe, is 95%. We have yet to hit that. We were really close in 18-19. The orange number represents the attendance for the district total, and the gray number represents the total enrollment. I point that out because you can see a trend. There's been a decline in student enrollment since 2018 and 19. I also share this graph to point out a maybe not well-known fact, but a lot of our calculations are determined by our ADA, which is our average daily attendance. So we recognize that things happen and people get sick and There are things that have to occur. However, we don't ever want to communicate from the school level, and certainly from a district level, that you can either show up or not, and it doesn't matter. It absolutely matters for multiple reasons. Number one, we would hope that the instruction and the level of expectation in the classroom is so high that if you were a persistent absentee person, that you're going to fall behind, and that process of catching up is going to be difficult just because of the constraints of the school day. And secondly, it does impact the calculation of some of our state funding. So that we want to recognize the importance of that. The next area of data that we will be looking at is with respect to staffing. So here's a breakdown by role group within the district. At the top group there represents central office, administrators and supervisors. That number is 14. Certified other, this includes like counselors, speech pathologists, curriculum specialists, we have 34. Certified teachers, we have 216. Child nutrition, that is related to food service, so that's 41. Maintenance and facilities, that's 43. Other is 48. And I think that number includes, somebody help me remember what this is. I believe it has to do with classified. Yeah, I heard somebody say something. Yes, thank you. Administrative assistant type positions, secretaries in the building, thank you very much. Paraprofessionals, that's our instructional assistants. Principals and assistant principals, we have 12. And transportation, we have 40. So the grand total of those employed in Grant County Schools is 503. This graph breaks down the years of service for our teachers. Less than 10 years of service is right at 69%. And then at 10 to 19 years of service is 18%. 20 to 29 years of service is 10%. And 30 plus years is 3%. So we know that this number is different than what it looked like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we know that there are some inherent challenges reflected in this number. So, teacher turnover. The blue represents the total number of teachers reported. The orange represents the number of turnover. So, the definition is prior year's teachers that do not return to teaching or new teachers that leave before the end of the school year. It includes teachers that left the school regardless of whether they were reemployed in another district, moved within their district, left Kentucky public school system, or retired. Teachers that are promoted to administrators are also included in this number. So basically, the way I think of this graph is vacated classrooms. Okay? So I think 2023, we had just over 250 staff reported, and then it looks like around 80 of those staff left their classroom that year. And you can see that's a tighter proportion than was reported in years past. Let's talk a little bit about community involvement. We have 7 mental health agencies that work with our students. We have a memorandum of understanding in 23 and 24. We have 10 therapists returning for the 24-25 school year. So an agency can have a memorandum in which they have access to provide services to our students during the school day. Typically, that is direct billing to the family. That's not a cost to the school. All we do is provide the space to allow them to have access to our students because we know that there is a need. We have identified that. And sometimes there is a barrier that prohibits a family from being able to meet that need. So we have provided and we have embarked on partnerships with agencies. This graph represents the percentage of students served by social workers, school counselors, and school psychologists in 23 and 24. So you can see there are peak months of August, September, and February in which 100% of our students were seen by a counselor during those months. Then you would see that our lowest number would be May, but on average, we have above 80% of our students seeing our specialists on a monthly basis. Parent and community involvement, again, this is 23-24. We had 5,627 volunteer hours. We had 2,170 volunteers, and we had 1,681 program hours. And if you weren't aware, a lot of our Family Resource Center and Youth Service Center coordinators do a lot of work to coordinate programs for our families and our community. And I know that they have to go through a process in which they determine needs based on surveys and on data, and then they write their programs with the intent of meeting the needs that are reflected in the data and those surveys. Our next subject will be budget and finance. So I want to talk to you a little bit about funding sources. And so there are two basic pools of money that we have access to. The first is the unrestricted funds, and the second pool is the restricted funds. Neither of these that I put up here is an absolutely comprehensive list, but it kind of gives you an idea of what each pool contains. Excuse me. So the unrestricted funds are our general fund, and that is basically sourced through our seat allocation and our local tax revenues. So that makes up the majority of what is unrestricted. Then we have restricted funds, and those include capital projects, capital outlay, building fund, and construction. Those four broad categories have to do with the work that you're seeing at DRE. So we're talking about renovation projects, maintenance projects, improvement projects with facilities. Those funds cannot be spent on salaries, they can't be spent on benefits, they can't be spent on textbooks, but they are absolutely restricted funds and they can only be spent on certain things. Food service has its own budget and its own funding, so that money cannot leave food service. So they have their own budget and we cannot pull from that budget. And then we have federal programs, and our federal programs include our title programs. That would be Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each one of those programs have a targeted audience and a targeted objective, and that usually has to do with the relationship of free and reduced lunch numbers and improving outcomes for all students based on those numbers. We do get a state preschool grant, and we do have individuals with disabilities money that comes to us from the federal level. All of those monies in those programs, titles, and grants, we don't have any flexibility on how we spend those. They have to be tied to the outcomes that the grants specify, and I will promise you that those monies are audited and they are scrutinized, and there is tons and tons of documentation and reporting that go along with that take a lot of man hours to complete, and there's a lot of attention that has to go in that. Recently set in through a call where some discrepancies were under $10, and we had to provide some corrective action that we would address. Now, that wasn't that we were in the hole or anything, but there's a lot of particular regulation about coding that goes along with that. So that's our basic pools of money that we have to draw from. So this information is also on the KDE website. And you can look at it under the financial reporting section of that website. And this is a breakdown of spending per pupil by district. And so the Grant County and the following set of graphs will be represented by the red bar, and then the striped bar represents the state average. So student support spending per pupil, you can see Grant County is right in the middle of this graph. On this side we have Dayton Independent, and on far right, we have Walton, Verona, and we are commensurate with the state average with our spending on student support. Instruction spending per pupil, red bar, you see Grant County, we are below state average, and but we are slightly above Owen, Fort Thomas, Beechwood, Gallatin, Kenton, Harrison, and Scott. And that relates to anything spent on instruction for students. That can include salaries and resources. Instructional staff per pupil, we have Grant County, and this includes IAs and support staff that go along with that. So Grant County, we are below Ludlow, Bellevue, and Southgate, but we are above the state average in that area of spending. District admin spending per pupil, this represents the money spent on the folks at district office. Grant County is to the right of this graph, and the other two counties are Kenton and Scott. And in the last meeting, I pointed out that there's a phenomenon of scale that is associated with this. I didn't know this until Mr. Morgan shared it with me last fall. I think Grant County is the 44th largest district by student population. So that's kind of where we rank within the state. There are some positions that we have to have, and then there are some positions that the work is such that the reporting that, you know, it is imperative that we have people dedicated to that reporting if we continue to receive those grants. So that's where we are. To the left of that, you see Campbell County, Harrison County state average, then Pendleton, Boone, Owen, then it's pretty consistent. The far left, and remember when I told you the scale phenomenon, well, that's why Southgate looks like it does, because it's such a small district, they don't even have a high school. But that's what their spending is. School administrator spending, that includes your principals and assistant principals. Grant County is sandwiched between Pendleton County and Scott County, and all the way to the far right is Beechwood, and all the way to the far left is Covington. Business office spending per pupil, this includes finance and HR departments. State average, you can see in the hash line, they're just shy of $600 per pupil, and Grant County is to the far right. It looks like it's just north of $200, or maybe around $250 based on the graph. Plant operation, this includes facilities and maintenance. Grant County above that $1,500 mark, but right in step with the state average, and then staying independent in between. Pupil transportation, this includes busing. We are below the state average. And then those graphs to the right there, Williamstown is just below us. And then you have some really small districts in which they have very few buses, if any at all. Total expenses per pupil. You can see where we are, very close to our neighbors, just below the state. And Newport would represent the highest in this category. Okay, so now, again, I apologize that Eli Anderson couldn't be with us here tonight, but again, that information will be available to you on a recording that will be posted tomorrow. And public comment, I welcome you to share thoughts, ideas, any remarks that you would like to make. I remind you that the school board will not be able to respond. If I can answer a question, I'd be more than happy to. We can do it one of two ways. I can hand you the microphone, or it's a pretty small space. If you just want to shout out loud, you're more than welcome to do that. That seemed to work just fine at the last meeting. So we will open it up for public comment.
Last year, your attendance was 92.8%. I know right after COVID, we weren't allowed to, I know the school wasn't allowed to, or maybe the county was not allowed to hold the parents accountable because of the COVID regulations. Are we able to hold parents accountable now?
Yes, and I believe there's new legislation out now, Representative Maddox can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we get to a 15 unexcused absent threshold, the DPP will turn it over to the local judge for a recommendation. Did I say that correctly?
You are correct.
Perfect. So there's state level intervention on attendance, so I appreciate that. Appreciate the information.
I have another question. So according to govsalary.com, if you look at a lot of salaries, it will show you like a base salary of some people, but then it'll also show you extra duties or stipend type things. So the numbers that you had up there when it said like district admin and it was comparing other counties, is that with the stipend and extra duties included in that salary?
I can say reasonably sure yes. I will double check that because I don't want to tell you 100% sure, but I'm almost certain that's how that would, because otherwise it would just be a base teacher
Okay. Where do we stand as far as building our teacher rates at this point in our schools? We still have a lot of, we're about a month out.
So high school, are we down to 2 vacancies currently? Middle school, we're at 4-ish, 4 or 5. Elementary schools, I know that they've been hiring this week, and I have approved several hires this week. I will tell you, I think Mason School, Dry Ridge is close. They're doing some interviews. By close, probably within 3. And then Sherman has made 4 or 5 hires within the past 2 weeks, but I don't know exactly as of today, but I can look into that.
Are these certified teachers?
There is a mix. So the board did approve to take action if we have to use emergency certification, we can. We made this clarification at the board meeting too. We will continue to look for certified teachers, and if we can put certified teachers in classrooms, we will put certified teachers.
So what is proposed if we don't have teachers to fill those positions in the school starts?
So at first, I think it'll be up to a building level decision, but what we've done in the past is to maybe rework the schedule to see if we can collapse some classes. If we have students, if we have classes with low numbers and we can still be underneath the threshold of what would be the ratio, we could potentially collapse classes. That would be the first option. I know in the years past, and it's not ideal, but there's been at the elementary schools some split grade levels. I believe that was the case at least one of our elementary schools last year. We had a teacher doing the K-1 split, which has been done before. Personally, it's not my preference because I think that it is a little more difficult to manage, especially if your numbers are high. I will tell you, Grand County is not unique with teacher shortages. I saw a post from Middleton County yesterday. They're still looking for math teachers. They're still looking for science teachers. I know Oldham County is still struggling. I would say any county that bedrooms or that is a bedroom to a major urban hub. So anything that is outside of that kind of northern Kentucky hub, Fayette County hub, and Jefferson County hub, it is not unique for those counties right now because, in no small part, the number of teachers graduating from colleges has dramatically decreased. It is somewhere in the neighborhood of the mid-70s, the number of teacher graduates that graduated from Northern this spring. That number is far lower than it has been historically. I would say that the nation is also struggling a little bit. There's always conversations about how we can inspire the next generation of teachers, inspire people to go into education. At the high school, historically, we've talked about opening up a pathway, trying to build a pipeline. I do think a hope would be that some homegrown, but that's, so my philosophy on that is we have to provide really good experiences to make people want to come back and teach, right? So that's important, so there's a balance there. But I think a best case scenario is that people would want to come back and pay forward the experiences they have in their community. Any other public comment? Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Do you think that there's looking at the graphs of the math and the reading, and there was a I thought was a pretty high number in novice. Do you think there's a direct connection between that high novice number and teacher turnover?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, I think that if we could stabilize our staffing, then I think there's so many things right in place that have been the result of a lot of intentionality and hard work. I think that those numbers would climb naturally. But it is difficult. I've been in 2 buildings. It is difficult to start over every year with a very high percentage of new staff. And I don't want to say anything against the new staff, however, because they're doing great things and they're learning at a lightning pace. We're trying to be strategic out of central office. How can we expedite the learning curve as fast as humanly possible and provide intense support and make it such that people want to stay here and continue to do the work. But it is a balance. But to your point and to answer your question, I think there is absolutely a direct correlation. Great questions. Any other comment? All right. Well, we'll be available a little bit. I'll be available certainly after the conclusion of this meeting. We do want to give you and encourage you the opportunity to take the survey. The survey will be on the website, and we will keep this open for a while. My plan is to have all of our staff take it at opening day if they have not yet taken it. So I encourage you to give us your input and feedback. We value that. And again, there's a question in there that allows you just kind of share anything that you would like for us to know. We will certainly select all of this, gather it, and study it, and publish it, and then that will kind of steer where we go moving forward. One more opportunity for any more public comments. If not, thank you for caring about our schools. Thank you for caring about our community and our future, and we look forward to what develops from this, and look forward to being able to share with you in the coming months the final product of our strategic plan. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you.